Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I got something that I've never done before. But anyway, what I'm going to be building here is a wake winch, or I'm going to call it a motorized winch, because the guys I'm building it for are big skiers and snowboarders, and they're going to be using it to, I guess, gain speed and in the cities and do the city type parkour montage video type deals. So it'll be pretty neat. So what we have here is a Predator 301. This is the 8 horsepower motor. I know most people probably use the 212. They want a little more oomph to their fun. So that's what I got here. And we have a torque converter. I keep wanting to call it a CVT, but they call this a torque converter. Now, I know this looks a little funky to most of you, and it looks funky to me too. This is supposed to be like over here. And this is for the 301. And it says requires modification. And, you know, I ordered on eBay, and eBay guy said pretty much you just need to take this out and put like a blank plug in there. I tried that. There is no way that this piece fits on this end of the motor. I can get at most 2 bolts to line up, but I can never get all 4, and it's only the top 2. I can never get the bottom 2 bolts to line up either. No matter how I put this thing, even with its, I tried to go below this, and I tried to get the knob to be down here, and it just hits the block of the motor there. Couldn't get it to work. So here's what I'm gonna do. I don't know how big this is going to be yet. See, I don't know how many trucks they have, or they're going to put this in a car, or what the deal is. So I think I'm going to make this thing like 18 inches by maybe 3 feet, but I'm thinking maybe like 30 inches. The problem, like for the frame size, I don't want it to be too big, but I don't want to be too small, because this thing's going to be pretty torquey, and I don't want to have an incident where this thing's pulling the cable in and like you're just ripping it, like tries to flip because it doesn't have enough mass to keep itself planted on the ground or spread out. So I think the longer it is, the better it'll work, but I don't know what they have to tote around this thing with. And so anyway, I think I'm going to make it like 18 inches wide by maybe 3 feet long. We'll see what that looks like. I'm going to try to get it shorter. I just don't know how it's going to react. I can always add length, but I can also make it too long and make it shorter if I have to as well. Pretty much the hard part's going to be the very front end where the spool sits and the very rear end where this sits, so I can cut the whole middle out and re-weld it if I have to. So then I'm going to make it 18 by 36 to go, or to start, and then we'll see what we have here. Or see how that works. I am running 5W30, as in, because this is going to be outside all winter long. And for anything minus 32, Harbor Freight wants you to run 530, so that's what I'm going to do. And it's just regular 87 octane, and I have a little bit of the heat in there. And yeah, so I'm going to pretty much make a care package for them as well, so that it's an all-inclusive package, so everything they need, tools and stuff to fix it while it's out there, they're going to have it. That's why, like, within this chain kit, I have the tools, and I have extra master links. I have 3 extra belts. I don't have an extra chain, because I really don't see the chain going to shit. This is the wheel that I'm going to use for the to run the spool off of. I think I'm going to have to make the spool, so this might get a little interesting. I'm going to see if I can find a drum and just weld or bolt the drum, because I have these bolt holes. Be nice if I can just bolt the drum to it and then wrap the cord in that. But I'll show you guys the cord we're using real quick. I just got to unbox it, I believe. So this is the rope I got. This is the Samson. Of course, I'm drawing a blank on it now. This is like the AM steel or whatever they call it, and this is 600 feet. I got the orange just in case they're spreading this thing out super far that, you know, pedestrians don't run into it. But at the same time, I almost bought like a sleeker color so that in video, you don't, if they're trying to do some hidden rope trick. But this is I don't know, not super cheap, but it's not super pricey either. Here it is, Amsteel Blue is what they call it. It's a 7x7 64 diameter and 600 feet long. You can get an 1/8. And I thought, so you might be thinking this is way too little, like thin of a rope. That's what I thought too. I thought I was gonna need to do something like crazy, like the winch cable and stuff. But I think what this stuff's made out of, it was rated for like 1,200 to 1,600 pounds, and they're not that fat, so this should do just fine. If not, I'll change it out later. So pretty much, I need to see the size of this before I wander on the internet with spools and such. It is good to know I can do this, or it's like small enough where it's not going to grow on that. So I'm going to try to find a winch drum, and then worst comes to worst, I'll make a circle for the other end if I can get a smaller drum to carry it, and then I'll put another end so it'll look like that with the drum, and then there'll be another circle pie plate on the other end to keep the rope from wandering off. I think that's how I'm going to do it. But yeah. So this is the start. I got to build the frame and add wheels, I guess. I have this axle. The axle's 3 foot wide. Got to figure out how to cut that thing perfect so I can weld it, and then so I can have a wobble in it. That axle is going to hold the drum, and mostly has the key for that the sprocket to sit in, and we'll be in good shape. So anyway, let's build a frame. Okay, so I've got the frame tacked up the way I want it, and now we're on to the spool shaft, and this one is 3 foot wide. Now I ordered this one, it was pre-made. It's 1 inch thick and it shrinks down to 3/4 for the lock nut. And I forget who makes this, honestly. Some other YouTuber had the whole parts list, and I stole this one from them, taking a shortcut. And so I didn't have to make one or source one myself. The smallest one this company made was 3 foot, I believe. Now I wish I dug a little more, because I would have liked the shorter one now, but I think when I was ordering this and when I was thinking about it, it was going to be a lot wider than it is. And now that it's obviously shrunk down, because I wanted it bigger at first so it's more stable, and it didn't matter to me because I got a truck, so I can kind of, as long as it isn't 10 foot long, we're all good. But I don't know what these guys got, or how they're going to tote it around, or where they're going to put it in their house. So I shrank it down in size, and I'm liking the size it is now for portability. I think that's key on this. Hindsight, I wish I would have thought about that before ordering this shaft. But what I've done is I've cut them down, and I've kind of beveled the edge so I can get a lot of weld in there, so I can make this thing very strong. And what I'm doing to try to keep it as true as possible, I have this key so that the keys line up, and I have it pinched down to this table, which is pretty good. And it is a Delta table, so it's pretty true for what it is. And then to keep it from snaking this way, having a big bow in it, I have this old piece clamped to it at the same time. So I think with all those helping me out, I think I'm in good shape for not failure. So anyway, we're going to start welding this one up a little bit. We're going to tack it, and then it's going to be tough to be able to roll it. We're probably going to just tack it up the way it is, and then I got to figure out a way I can clamp it down and everything so that I can weld all the way around it. But for now, this will keep it true, at least for the tacks, and we should be able to get some good progress started. Okay, so the frame's all tacked up. That's roughly where the motor is going to lie. And then the jack stands are just so that I can get a rough idea of how high I want this thing to be. I think I'm going to drop it down maybe to like this height. So I'll basically raise that foot, what is that, about 1 inch or so. And the reason why I want to do that is for the overall height. I want this thing to sit, well, it's going to have wheels, so it's going to be cockeyed. So really, it doesn't really matter. Right there is probably perfect. Got to remember, for however high the wheels are going to be, it's going to be digging in the ground here. And then you got to think of the angle that that spool is going to want to come off of. So what I'm going to do now is pretty much from this point, that's where the pillow block's going to sit, somewhere pretty much right where this foot is. And I'll slide it over a little bit. But anyway, the pillow block's going to sit on this edge here, and then that way the nut's going to sandwich it to it, so it can't roll anywhere. But what you want to do from the pillow block is figure out, well, where your pillow block's going to sit, and then run your vertical tube up and down each side. And then what I'm going to do, because obviously I can't go straight out here, this is going to come in somewhere roughly a 45 maybe, going down, and then it's going to actually come up at an angle to meet under the pillow block as a reinforcement for all the horse torques this thing's going to make. So that's the idea. Now we're going to go ahead and make that up, open up the pillow blocks, and see what we can get rolling. I want to take a second to show you why I put the motor where it is, and this is not final, but this is roughly why, and everything I'm about to say will still stand based no matter where it ends up. So roughly it's centered, and actually that works pretty well for balance of the rig. If it was too much to one side or the other, you'd be worried about when you first starting, you rev her up to high gear to rip that winch in, it will want to twist and torque, and if it's all on one edge, there's a chance that you could roll it over, more so than it being in the middle. Now, second one, I don't want it too far to the left here, because when this cover goes on, it's got to have enough room, but I don't want anything protruding the edge of the frame. I want everything to stay within the parameters of the frame, side to side, and the front's going to be a little interesting, because these are going to go up vertical, like I said, and then depending on what wheels, I got to grab the wheels and put those on, because depending on what angle this sits, I'm going to want the lead to sit at an angle that works. So it'll have to be like this general idea, I guess. You know, it won't be like if the wheels were on like the very end and it sat like this, then it'll roll flat. But I need this thing probably be up somewhere in this range. It's hard to do with one hand holding this thing. So that when this thing's sitting on the ground ready to roll, that this rope shoots straight out from whatever plane it's going to be on. So that's one thing to consider. And if anything, you want it to be slightly upwards too, because you got to think, if you have a guy standing up there, the rope's going to be four feet off the ground. Throw some skis and boots and such, you're at 4 or 5 foot off the ground where the rope is, and you're coming all the way down to like a foot and a half off the ground. So that thing was flat, it's going to be constantly rolling on this top one. But if it's torqued up a little bit, then it's going to roll a little bit in the middle. And if it's too high, it'll put actually down pressure on it and keep that front of it planted. If it's too far down, it's going to work the opposite. It's going to be rolling on this one, but it's also going to lift. It's going to want to lift the winch off the ground, and you do not want that when that's where all your traction is coming from, this thing being planted in the snow and ice. So one thing to think about if you're building it on your own, that you don't want that to rip up. So if anything, you want to go high so it's always pulling down. The next thing, the drain bolts are one right here, one right there. This one is in the triangle of death. That's where all the moving parts are. That's where everything hazardous is. You don't want to be in here, if you're changing your oil, not going to be on. But just out of principle, you don't want to be in this space for anything mechanical that you're going to be working on. Now, this drain, I'm going to shoot this thing as far as I can over where I can still get a good hole through both of these. And that way, that drain's easy to do with any sort of wrench or socket. And it can drain with minimal oil spillage on everything. Ideally, that drain will be a little further out from the bolts so it can just clearly miss everything, but not the case. So anyway, you want that to get as close as you can just for ease of oil in the future for if these guys ever change the oil. So yeah, and then the way you do this pretty easily is you pull your measurement instead of guessing anywhere, whatever the distance is, which in this case about 7 3/4. You can hook here, mark yours at 7 3/4, and then that'll be the same here. It's like building a house when you have 16 on center. You have 16 front to front and 16 back to back. Same deal here. That way in the center, you have all this meat, which is going to be your 7 1/2 that you're going to want to hit. And that gives you plenty of space either way if you want to shimmy it like I did here, without having to guess or have any extra measurements. That's the easy way to do it. You just pull and go. Now everything's just going to be tacked, and it's like this hole here. Just going to be tacked. Now I did these cuts. This is the same piece of metal running all the way here, and I did this notch so that it covers up the ends of these tubes so you can never clog them full of snow and ice. And then these are going to get solid welded all the way around so you have a sealed space in there. And after all the welding, it's going to get painted and we're going to be rolling. So anyway, I just want to go over some of those things with you guys. Something to think about of all your space and clearances. And up front here, everything in this space is actually perfect for me because I need somewhere to mount a spot for this and a spot for some sort of toolbox, and it will work perfectly either way. I don't know what I'm going to do for a toolbox yet. The only little one I got is that one, that blue one, but it's for my tractor, and pretty hard pressed to give that thing up. I'm surprised I honestly don't have one just from something around. So anyway, I got to work on that. It's going to just be real small. It's going to hold, well, the smallest it can be is this long. Smallest it can be is at least this long. That way I can put the extra belts, the extra master links for the chain, and all the tools that he'll need, like these. Probably an adjustable that can do those bolts, or those nuts rather, and the nuts for these clutches and pulleys. That way on the machine at all times you have everything you need to field strip it and fix it if something rattles loose. You don't want to have to go back to the car, or if they don't have anything, go back to a shop or something to have it fixed. You want everything on hand and ready to roll. That's why I got him 2 extra belts, and it has tools in here to take the chain apart, and then he has 4 extra master links in case something happens, so you can always make it work, and at least get it so you can spool on the rest of your stuff easy and then roll on. So that is some of those details there, and this actually turned out pretty true. I'm pretty impressed with myself there. I was kind of worried about it, getting this thing to it'll spin all lumpy, and I don't want that. So I got it where to hold. I kind of ground it down, and I'm going to get everything placed. You won't see this, but I am going to go over another pass all the way around it, and then grind it down so it's nice and smooth. And yeah, so let's get to building this spool holder. Okay, so what I've got now, I've marked everything up. I have the shaft here marked for pretty much just little Sharpie marks for this wants to go, and then the ends. But what I'm doing now is making the spool. So I got 3 holes marked out and center punched. Those are the 3 holes for this. And basically what's going to happen is these, I got 2 discs, and then I have a 9-inch rod. And they're pretty self-explanatory, where these are drilled out perfectly for that shaft, so it's not going to wobble on the far end. These are going to bolt to the sprocket, and then the sprocket will be driven by the chain, which will move the spool. The spool will be solid welded together all the way across, and it's just going to sit on the rod. And you could probably weld it to the rod if you wanted to too, but I don't want to. I want to be able to pull it off if it breaks or something. But it's drilled, so that'll just slide in there real snug, so there's no wobble. It's not going to bounce or get chewed apart. And so we're going to go ahead, drill these holes, and then probably slip everything on the shaft and weld it up. So that's the plan. And I haven't really decided. I think this is plenty strong for what it is, but I might run a fat bead across there, because this rod's quite a bit bigger. You have enough clearance where if I throw a fat bead across there, make sure 110% that thing's solid, then it won't interfere with anything. So I think that's the plan. That's what I'm going to do. So let's get the drilling. Okay, so this is what the spool is going to look like. This is offset enough to where the sprocket on the torque converter goes. That sucker right there. So this is where this wants to be. I have a 1/2-inch nut spacing these, and this is just a 3/8 bolt. And right now I have double lock washers. I think I might switch this out to a flat washer if I have it. I was thinking I'll double lock it so there's no way it's going to come out, but I don't know. We'll cross the bridge when I get to it. And then, so this is what it's going to look like. All I need to do here is center this up, put a couple tacks in it, and then make sure when it spins around, it looks pretty good. And then these are pretty rough edges still. I'm going to take a flappy disc and just keep grinding it till when I spin it, it looks pretty good. And that's all that's going to happen there. Some of these have a high spot. Some are, most of it's pretty good except for like one high spot. This one I think has a really high spot. So anyway, for cutting out with an angle grinder, feel pretty good about it. But yeah, so gonna slap this together and then take it back apart for paint. And then I gotta throw on the wheels. And I have the wheels there, and I have axle. I'm taking off the old pressure washer. And so once I get those on, I'll see where where the fair lead needs to go. Is that what that's called? I don't know. I'm having a brain fart. I don't know. Anyway, that's where that roller piece is going to go. And then, yeah, I'm pretty much just going to take this spool, and I think I'm going to tie a knot here, self-tap the knot through here with a bolt and a washer, or just like a self-tapper, and then I'll thread that on to kind of check the functionality. It'll actually go backwards. No, it won't. No, it'll always suck in. So I'll thread that in with the engine to kind of test it, and then we'll take everything back apart and paint it. So here we go. Okay, so we've got the little wheels on. I think that's a decent amount there. It could go maybe a little bigger, but that's what I had without having to, because it worked perfect, I think, for what we're going to use it for. So I think those work pretty good. Now, the fair lead. This is going to be the tricky part, because I made this way more complicated than it had to be. Because this has to be at least, tubing width away from that sprocket. And it'll sit something like this in here. So we're going to have to put one going out and then one going up to catch this piece. And then at an angle back down to like here, so that it has multiple points of contact. I mean, I don't know. This shouldn't have that much stress on it. But there's no reason for me to not put another point of contact back there to make it super rigid. It makes more weight up front to keep this thing planted. So that's another benefit for having more metal. But anyway, still kind of a bummer. There's our spool there. She's looking pretty okay painted. That's first coat. I want to do at least 2 coats on pretty much everything. But we'll see. This primer dries pretty quick, so it's awesome stuff. I mean, it looks a little different to most people. You don't use that color primer, but I like that stuff. So for what I use it for, and yeah, so that's pretty much how it's gonna look. It's kind of cool. We'll see. Curious with the engine back there. See what the weight feels like, but yeah. This thing could have been swapped. If I put the pillows on that side, so the spool sat back just a little bit more, I think it would have been better. And still can, but we'll see. We'll see how this works right here. And yeah, so let's get that thing on there. And then we're pretty much golden. Once that's on, we can finish welding. Everything else is welded. All the bolt holes are drilled. I'll only need to drill 2 more bolt holes for that thing, and we'll be on to paint. And we'll be rolling. So yeah. Then we'll see. Kind of running out of time. This took way longer than I thought it was going to. We'll see where this gas thing lines up. See what we can get going for that. But anyway, and then we also kind of need to make. We'll see how this thing all goes, and we might need to make some sort of cover for the spool here. So maybe I'll make these ones when it comes out and then goes up. I'll make it tall enough to go over top of this, and then that way I can put a piece of steel over top so no one gets their shit mangled. But we'll play that one by ear. Just like that, the spool, the sprocket and shaft, and the chassis itself has its first coat of paint after 2 coats of primer. And I gotta say, just putting black over top of that kind of like burnt red, burnt orange type deal is just so much more satisfying than putting it over gray. It just feels like it just takes it over, and it's awesome. Definitely recommend using the red instead of the gray. But here we are. There is a couple runs. It's hard not to here where it's so cold. I think it's like, I don't know. I can see my breath in here, so it's probably upper 30s, low 40s in this building, and that's the temperature of the steel as well. Tough this time of year to get a good paint on there, especially rattle canning it. But anyway, for what they're using it for, this thing's going to be sweet. They're not even going to notice. And before the second coat goes on, I will lightly sand some of this stuff, spray it again, and we'll see how it looks. And yeah, so this is first coat. I'll throw a second coat on it probably tomorrow after work, and then I just got to put it together and then bolt the fairlead on there. The only thing I didn't weld up is actually going to be the cover. That's going to be that flat piece of steel behind that red jug, and I need to put everything together before I put that on there. And if I did that today, I knew I wouldn't have time to get this far on the paint. And the paint's more important because it takes so long to dry in here. I can't just whip it out. And on the can it says like dry 15 minutes, and that's not true. It'll take upwards 45 minutes to an hour to get even touch dry, and if you grab it, it'll still come off in your hands just because of the temperature. So the paint was more the priority. It won't take any time to throw a final coat on that flat sheet as a cover, and we'll go from there. But pretty much the only thing that needs to be drilled is that lead, but that's okay. That's easy, and then I just paint the holes, and we're golden. So here we are. Next time we see it, it'll be all together. So here it is. This is pretty much the finished product. One thing left I need to do is paint this the front skid there. But I got the fairlead mounted. I got the spool all roped up. The only thing it really needs is the chain put on. These pillows need to be greased, and then this cover's got to get put on, and all this needs to be torqued down because they're just finger tight. So that's important. But we're getting to the final parts there. The wheels are all good. Got the axles mounted, and then it just takes clips to hold them on, and they'll do just fine for them, I believe. And yeah, so I need some of this repainted, and I need to make sure this is truly in line with the chain. And then once that's all on, I have that sheet that I'm gonna put on top of here, and it's gonna run over, and then I gotta figure out how to bend it and have it tie in down here. And it doesn't have to be super low. I'd actually rather it be somewhat close. It's got to have a chain cut out, but besides that, it just needs to cover this apparatus is what they wanted, so that no one can get their jimmies all fucked up in there. So anyway, gaining. That's what it's. Hey, Kappa. What are you doing? Anyway, this is it. This is what it's gonna look like. I think the orange looks pretty good with it, to be honest. But I don't know. We'll see how they like it. Hopefully everything works pretty good. It's hard to test its functionality in here. So if there's anything wrong, it'll be back, and there will be a part 2 on it. But yeah, so the final put together is coming. So here we are, the final product. I just gotta tie the handle on, but that's fairly self-explanatory, and that's right in the truck. Just have to do it. So this is what it looks like. You'll have your motor in the back with your 420 chain run to your 60-tooth sprocket. That is roughly 10 inches. And then that's run onto a 9-inch spool with the ends. And that'll run your rope through here. And yeah. So that's just a regular torque converter off eBay. And she's ready to rip and roll. I'm curious to see how this goes. I'm sure they'll have plenty of videos, plenty of movies with their montage. And yeah, check them out if you want to see how this thing rips. I think they're going to use it this weekend. I'm bringing it up to his brother today, so he can bring it up there, and hopefully they use it hard and honestly try to break it. So if something's wrong, I can fix it before the real snow comes. They can have a great winter. So thanks for watching. I'm sure some of you are interested in a build like this. Pretty simple, as you see. You just build up your frame, and I have plenty of 3-point structures here to just give everything strength and rigidity, and that this thing shouldn't fail under a load. But anyway, this is the little wake winch project, or snow winch, whatever you want to call it. And thanks for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the final product.